The verdict is out for John Robin Sharp.
I don't regard the sentence as, very onerous to going to jail and, the dangers that I would face there.
Sharp breathed a sigh of relief yesterday after being sentenced to just 4 months of house arrest for possessing hundreds of pornographic pictures of young boys. Joining us this morning from Vancouver to discuss the sentence is Rosalind Prober from Beyond Borders, a child advocacy group. I hope you can hear us. Can you?
Yes, I certainly can.
Okay, good morning to you, and I know it's early in Vancouver. Thank you for being with us. And in studio is Karen McArthur, a criminal defense lawyer. Good morning, Karen.
Morning.
Let's Karen, first to you. As a defense lawyer, what do you make of this ruling? And maybe you can talk a little bit about what this the conditional terms of this house arrest are about.
I'm a little surprised at how lenient the sentence is. I predicted that he would get something in the neighborhood of 1 year of a conditional sentence. A conditional sentence is the same thing as serving a jail sentence, but it's on the outside, and any breach of it lands you right back in custody.
Mm-hmm. Rosalind, what was your reaction to the sentencing?
Well, of course, it was a farce. John Robin Sharp has to stay home for 4 months between 4 p.m. and 8 in the morning. No probation whatsoever. John Robin Sharp is a sex tourist. He's an individual who is over in Sri Lanka with pictures of boys in pornography. He can travel now back to Sri Lanka. It's absolutely disgusting.
He was also acquitted of distributing child pornography, correct? And that related to some of his writings. Do you think that that case had anything to do with this case?
Well, the judge...
Well, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Karen, you go ahead.
The judge actually found that Mr. Sharp had become a pariah in his community, essentially hounded out of his own apartment, so that he'd effectively already been punished. And I think that does link to the other charges of his being acquitted of the other charges. There is a linkage there, and it's reflected in the sentence, according to Justice Shaw.
Rosalind?
Well, of course, Judge Shaw was very critical of Canadian society and Vancouver people, for example, who he said, haven't treated Sharp well. And perhaps that's true that Mr. Sharp hasn't, by some few individuals, has been targeted. Having said that, Mr. Sharp is an in-your-face advocate for sex with boys. How does Judge Shaw expect Canadian society to react to that type of thing? John Sharp showed no remorse whatsoever. He continued to be jubilant because he keeps winning in the courts. He was totally jubilant after this ruling. He continued to say that sex with children is great. And of course, the age of consent to sexual activity in Canada is a dismal 14. And Canada, by the way, has a record on child protection because of these issues. And you will hear nothing from Ottawa on this because they're so complacent. So in fact, Canadian society really have to deal with this individual who is getting away with what we see as a crime against young boys, which is really irreversible.
On the other hand, as a defense lawyer, Karen, he has not been charged with child molestation or assault of any kind. This is just possessing 500
or some odd pictures of young
children. Which are a lot of pictures.
It's a lot. It's a big collection.
It's a big collection. I guess the question is, where do we draw the line? Where do we draw the line between possession and also molestation?
Parliament has drawn the line, and they've made it a crime to possess child pornography. I think the issue that Rosalind and others have to now grapple with is whether or not the penalty is appropriate here. Rosalind says she doesn't think Ottawa will say anything about it. I'm curious, what was the Crown asking for yesterday?
Yes, well, the Crown was actually for a jail term, or he was asking for a longer conditional sentence. I'd like to tell you that Defense Counsel Paul Burstein was also asking for a longer. He said, 3 to 18 months conditional.
So how does the Defense Counsel ask for that? And maybe you can tell me that.
See, I thought he would get a 1-year conditional sentence, but what is different is most conditional sentences will impose a curfew from about 12 o'clock midnight until 6 o'clock. So Mr. Sharp is actually subject to a longer curfew, being confined to his 1-bedroom apartment, than most conditional sentences.
I want to ask, if there is a breach of this conditional sentence, what happens?
There's a hearing, and the judge, if he's found guilty of breaching it, he serves the entirety in jail. So he would, let's say he breaches today, he will go to jail for 4 months with no chance of early release.
Rosalind,
could I just say, as an advocate for children, I'm surprised that a defense counsel does not know that in Canada there is breach after breach after breach after breach, and individuals do not go to jail. They just get a slap on the wrist. Don't do that again. We tried as an organization to come into the court and speak on behalf of the victims sexually abused in child pornography, and the courts turned us down, and I think that's really sad because banks make victim impact statements.
There were no victim impact statements, and I'm going to let Karen get in here as well.
Rosalind, I guess I'm surprised at your position that I don't know the law here. Section 745 of the Criminal Code deals specifically with conditional sentences, and the regime that I just spoke of is exactly what the law is. If he is found to breach this, it is mandatory that he serves the balance of his sentence inside a jail.
Right, and I respectfully disagree with you because I don't believe that people who breach are immediately sent to jail.
All right, well,
read the code.
I think you'll both agree to disagree here, so we have to stop. But thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll find out. We'll see. Here's Linda.